Hi, welcome back to the Heart and Science of Creative Leadership. I'm Bill Coletti. If you've been following along, I'm typically joined by my amazing co-host, Arthi Shah. And we did that for the dozen or so episodes we did in season one. But as we go into season two, we're going to do a little bit of separation where I get to have some conversations with agency owners in more of a one-on-one context. We're still going to be working together with Arthi and have an icon series where we're talking to owners that have really grown and then exited their firms and moving to their next phase. So excited to have these conversations one-on-one. And one of the first ones that we have is with Ken Luce, who is the president of LD, a firm based in Dallas, Texas. Ken came from a larger firms. He talks a little bit about in the podcast where he, one of his first roles was at a regional PR firm. We had to lay off a bunch of people, but then went to a large global agency, worked with me at the large global agency that we were together with. And then we both sort of started our entrepreneurial journeys roughly at the same time. And so Ken is a friend. Ken knows the industry, knows the business really well, and has a lot of the same challenges that a lot of owners have. One around process, about firing people. He's got some really clear thoughts about talent management. But then we have this really great conversation where we talking about hard things and two public awareness campaigns, one around mental health issues and one around sexual assault, that he's very proud of. And I know as an observer and seeing the impact of both of those campaigns nationally, but also in Texas. So Ken shares a lot of really rich perspectives. I think you're really going to enjoy the conversation, and it's really my pleasure to introduce you to my friend and someone who's been an entrepreneurial mentor of mine, Ken Luce. Ken Luce, welcome to the Heart and Science of Creative Leadership. I am really glad you're here. I want to have a conversation about your entrepreneurial journey, and what's most important to me is that you're a friend, and that's what I value most, but also you're someone that I worked for and worked with in years past, but also have just really admired the way you go through life, both as a businessman, as a family man, but also just as a man in life. And so I really appreciate that, and looking forward to have a great conversation talking about entrepreneurism and your journey.
Well, Bill, I'll say it, and I've said it to you privately. You have helped me just as much on a friendship basis, and especially relooking at priorities and our conversation about a year ago of taking time for the self and all of those things that we all say and we don't do in this industry. Started doing that, and besides not being clean shaven or keeping my beard trimmed, I've done that, and I owe you for that. So thank you.
Well, I appreciate that. Well, let's start there. So I
Okay.
love talking about this notion as entrepreneurs, the prioritization of self, prioritization of you. And I think after a second or two, most owners kind of appreciate it and understand it. But it's sort of jarring because we live in this world of servant leadership and this world of it's all about them, it's not about me. But take that a little bit farther. What did you take away, and how have you evolved in your thinking about prioritization of you?
Well, Bill, I think it starts with my definition of work-life balance. And I have been really consistent for years about what that means. And what it means is different to everybody else. I have my definition, somebody else has their definition. You can't have a definition that says, I'm going to go work out at 6 p.m. I don't stay up that late. I'm best at 4:30 in the morning. I am best when I'm accomplishing work, for instance. But what I did 15 years ago for work-life balance, I felt if I had a BlackBerry with me, I did age myself, that if I had a BlackBerry with me and I could do work and be at my kids' games, that was work-life balance. Now, work-life balance to me is how do I clear my mind as I've reached a different stage, both family and professionally? How do I clear my mind enough to actually be real effective as an owner, a boss, client service? Because the biggest lesson I learned, and I know we're going to talk later on some of the mental health things, is that if your brain is clear and you write things down and your brain's clear, you become more focused and more clear in your own thinking. And work-life balance to me has become taking time to do that, taking time to not only work out and think and keep up with friends, that's all real important, but taking the time to be off but on. And again, my definition, and it's different, and we have a great work-life balance here, is it's what you think work-life balance is. And I think that's real important for people to remember. It's not the same for everybody else. Yours is sailing. Mine is watching college football. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
for instance. So that's where I am.
Yeah, that's fabulous. So many good things there. So if you were coaching entrepreneurial Ken when you were sitting on the bleachers at the basketball game, football game, volleyball, whatever it was, band concert, as you're sitting on the bleachers and you're there with your BlackBerry or your digital device, what would you today say to that man leader then? What would you say?
That's a really good question, and it's different because I have talked to myself. I I walk an hour every morning. I talk to myself.
Mm-hmm.
I think the one thing I would do first is make sure I gave myself credit for spending time with the family. If you
Mm-hmm.
talk to my boys today, I have three, they all would say, I never missed their games. That was it. Now, they knew I wasn't a soccer fan, so if they played soccer, I only had to go to one. But in general, I never missed anything that was important to them. I missed one because I was stuck at O'Hare. That's it. But I was there. They knew I was there. They appreciated that. I didn't give myself enough credit. I always felt
Mm-hmm.
guilty. And I don't feel guilty today because they've expressed, look, my dad was there. He might have been yelling at the refs, but he was there. Um, so that's one. And two, making sure that I did take the time to go do that. I could have done more. We could have gone on more vacations or we could have done other things. But if family is important to you, and some people it's all work, and that's fine.
Mm-hmm.
But whatever is important to you individually that you give yourself credit for on top of doing it is very important. And I don't think most entrepreneurs, it's because why we're entrepreneurs.
Mm-hmm.
We're never satisfied. We always want to grow or we always want to do something different. If you take a step and say, look, I've got three great boys. They have great wives and girlfriends. They're great fathers. I did everything I could with my wife that my kids are good kids. That's my accomplishment. Give myself credit.
That's
Work
awesome.
can come and go.
Yeah, that's great. I think taking care of ourselves and acknowledging, even in the height of all of the stress that we have, acknowledging that the best we can with what we've got, and that includes plane travel and client demands and things like that. Did you believe back then, and do you believe differently now, that you could multitask? That you could sit there and write a memo or respond to a client or do something? And is that a little bit different as you've matured and now you're not getting those demands? Maybe it's grandkid games that you're going to, but do you have a different thought about multitasking on the bleachers?
Let's take multitasking in general because we all try to do it, and it's the bane of all of our existence. Let's be clear. I don't care whether it's device. I don't care whether it's too much social media. I don't care if it's client service in general. I think we need to pick and choose when we multitask. In other words, I can sit on a Zoom call and read email and still participate in my mind's there. But depending on who it is, what I'm doing, there's a time not to multitask. And whether that's professional or personal, it took me a long time to realize that. But the reason was I was so intent on setting and getting to the goals that I wanted to get and
Mm,
proving that I could do what I did after failing several other businesses or doing other things. I might say to that other person back, the other Ken back 20 years ago, might say, it's okay to fail. I mean,
mm-hmm,
that's how I was raised. I didn't believe that, Bill. So I
mm,
think the competitive side of us makes us multitask as much as anything else.
mm-hmm,
And I do think multitasking doesn't allow us to turn off our brains. But
mm-hmm,
in our business, I think there are times we have to, certainly. And I don't like it. I try not to. I try to put my phone in the other room, for instance. Or I go to bed early and a client knows what they need me. They need to call my wife and say, get him out of bed. So I think multitasking, much like a lot of things in our generation, and I feel for the next generation, makes having a life, makes our careers harder, makes everything harder. There's an
Yeah.
expectation. When we used to have to fax or answer the phone, there was no
Mm-hmm.
multitasking per
Mm-hmm.
se, not in the vein we use it today.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot more clarity and sort of focus, sort of sequential, as opposed to this sort of spatial that we sort of have to live, experience
Yeah.
that we have to live in. Yeah, it's valuable. You know, a lot of people in the coaching work that I do, and owners, when I talk to them, I introduce this phrase of working in your business versus on your business, sort of classic entrepreneurial thinking. And on your business is, you know, about building the organization, the systems, the procedures, talent management, things like that. And then sort of doing the work, the client work is sort of the other side. Do you think about your role as the leader of your firm in this context of on the business versus in the business? And do you think about it that way? And how's that evolved over time in your thinking as an entrepreneur?
I it's evolved tremendously, and I think it goes to kind of the conversation we were having off air too.
Mm-hmm.
Big agency and life and everything else. And in my case, with a lot of entrepreneurs, your startup phase, the pressures you put on yourself. Mine was always, I got to make payroll. Period. It was the most important thing is I have 8 people who are counting on me. Still to this day, it's 60 people are counting on me. But it's a different mentality because we've grown. I have, thanks to you, it's not a commercial for Bill Coletti, but thanks to some of your counsel and really letting go of certain areas and letting people learn and fail for the next generation of leadership. In that phase of entrepreneurship, it's a learning on my end too. I got to let go, but I have to stay involved in certain things. And so I think it's all a cycle. And I
Mm-hmm.
think it's hearing from others that it's okay to be in a cycle. You
Mm-hmm.
know, that's been interesting in my perspective is to be in a place of trust and pressure
Mm-hmm.
are not the same thing. I can still have the pressure of making payroll. That's fine.
Sure.
That's how I think about my people. Um, but trust allows me to go do other things and allows me to keep growing the business. And I do think entrepreneurs, a lot of times, I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for being successful, whatever that means.
Mm-hmm.
Again, even if it's just successful on December 12th, that's fine.
Yeah,
So
I love that. That's great. Um, in your role, so what do you go by as title at your firm? Are you president, CEO? What do you have as a like on the paperwork?
we're not a good branding firm because it's not consistent, Bill. And we need to watch what we're doing. No, it's president because
Okay.
I, while I'm a founder, yes, I think clients, and it's also on our end. It's why we don't have a lot of titles.
Mm-hmm.
We only have 3 titles at the firm because I believe that clients, do they want to know they're dealing with a senior person? Yes. Okay. And yes, if they're dealing with a partner, they get that. But even our younger folks, I think to give people the benefit of when they're really good at something,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter about your title.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If we tell a client, so and so is really good. That's trust. That's trust we've earned. It's
Mm-hmm.
not based on title. It's not based on seniority. It's based on somebody with. I have people with 3, 4 years experience build it, blow away people with 10 to 15 years experience in certain aspects. They know more, or they're better at client service, or they're better at others. So again, entrepreneurship. I can be different. We can be different. Um, but yeah, I'm president, and most of the clients know me and they basically say he's the old gray haired now. That's a different phase in
Is that
life.
most but not all? Are there clients that don't know you that don't that you don't interact with?
There are now.
Yeah.
There weren't for a while. And that's where certain risk comes in. A lot of
Sure.
them are this is a relationship business. A lot of them are my relationships professionally and personally.
Right.
But to say, hey, so and so's in charge. If you need me, call. I still check in. I still talk to all clients. It drives my people crazy, but I do because I want them to know I'm around. But again, the only way you're going to grow is to give up some relation. That's a trust factor I talk about. That's why I'm lucky to have people that have worked with me, some for 20 years at
Mm-hmm.
different places that
Mm-hmm.
I know I can trust. And if something fails, it fails.
Yeah, that's one of the most special things. As I reminded myself, I went back to your website and sort of saw some friendly faces, and they've been kicking around with you for a while. Yeah.
Bill, look, I have people that started with interns at other firms and have been with me at three firms. And but but now they're taking that same attitude of mentoring and growing people.
Mm-hmm.
Again, we're only as good as people in this business. That's the one thing about agency business. We were having a discussion, in fact, today. We're not in the marketing business. We're in the customer service business. No matter
Yeah.
what anybody wants to say, that's what we do.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that's a hard mindset. And client service has gotten really hard with multitasking, social media, all those things we talk about.
Yeah.
Client service is not what it was 20 years ago.
No, it's definitely changed. So I want to talk about you just for a sec more. What do you define, or how do you create buckets, or if you think about it this way, are there buckets that you're responsible for? I mean, what are the things that you do as president that you have the responsibility for that's different and unique from others?
I
Is
don't
there
know if it's
buckets?
I don't know if it's different or unique. I think it's where phases come. Um,
Mm-hmm.
our firms had tremendous growth,
Mm-hmm.
some by selling a piece and big pieces moving here and other things. But with that comes we're not sitting around the table together anymore. Our evolution has been we have to be a real firm. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We need to have an LDWWA. We need to be consistent. We need to have process. All things that I hate. I hate process, Bill. I
Mm-hmm.
hate it with a passion.
Mm-hmm.
I think it gets in the way. But you know what? Certain people need it and certain clients want it.
Mm-hmm.
So mine's an evolution. We're now not a startup. We're
Mm-hmm.
13, 14 years old. I and I'm in that stage. Again, Roy Spence is somebody I've admired for years. Lanier Timberland was my mentor, and they loved the business and they stayed in it. But at some point, we all have to. When do I give it up enough that it's going to go on without me? That's where I am. Not in a bad way,
Mm-hmm.
but if I decide to get out when I don't enjoy it, and I love what I do, but if
Mm-hmm.
I ever say, it's time or I need to hand it over, or somebody bought the firm, they need to know it's going to be run the same way, whether I'm here or not.
Mm-hmm.
That's hard, at least for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
to standardize or systemize my beliefs, which are different, in my opinion, than other places,
Mm-hmm.
I need to get people to buy into that and stay into that. And that's where I am today. It's the how do I make an LDWWA that truly matters because we're not all sitting around at a table. When we started, there were eight of us and we all sat together. Everybody knew everything.
And you probably had a lot of common vocabulary because a lot of those eight had been on the journey with you for years. So there was a lot of shorthand you guys had.
Exactly. When I say today, for instance, look, I believe you take new ideas to clients all the time about their business. I have people have come other places that are like, why would I do that? Why would
Mm.
I do something free?
Yeah.
Well,
Are we getting paid for that? Yeah,
how are we
absolutely.
going to grow the business if we don't? Or how do clients really know that you think about them? And that, when we talk about the economy, we now are in a place, I believe, in the industry similar to what happened in 12 and 11 and other
Mm-hmm.
cycles that come in the agency business, which is clients are going to make decisions and you're going to learn if your client service is good. They're going to make decisions on, look, I got to cut budget. Okay. Do they get rid of the agency and just hire somebody else? Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
that happens a lot. And it's
Mm-hmm.
happening in the industry right now for no other reason than they don't have a good relationship. So I'm just going to let you go and get somebody else.
Yep.
Or do they call and say, or do you know in advance, hey, look, I know your budgets are tight. Why don't we do something different? Why don't we work for less? Why don't we change our billing? Why don't we give you more?
Mm-hmm.
That's why 25 is going to be, that's why I'm so excited about the industry. Not
It'll give me a lot more creativity in the
a
way
lot more
you go to market.
creativity, but you'll know if your client service and your relationships, it's like a marriage. If you go through
Mm,
hard times in a marriage and you work it out, you grow, you get better. It's no different on the client side. If a client is struggling budget wise, or they're worried about the economy, or they're worried about something else, and you just say, hey, look, we get it. We'll just do that. We'll add it to what we're doing. And
mm-hmm.
it's why we don't bill by the hour.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not all about, and that's hard for people. It's not all about what did I do today? It's about what did we do together? And
Mm-hmm.
that's hard. Again,
And grow their business. Yeah.
client service is what we are. Do we wake up every day and say, client who does prepaid legal services, did we help sell prepaid legal services today?
Mm-hmm.
Not did we get the press release right and did we get coverage in CNN?
So good.
That's a checkbox.
Yeah.
It's
Has
hard,
being an
Bill.
entrepreneur sharpened that clarity? Or did you have that clarity when you were at a bigger agency and kind of an employee, if you will? That crystal clarity that you have there about client service, did that get
I
sharpened?
it got sharpened in a strange way, but I think it stayed with me. And at big firms, they fought it. Okay, there was always this. Well, if you're not billing and you're not this and you're not that and you're not working 50 hours, fine. When I took over an agency, it was Timberland McLean PR at the time from a very dear friend of mine. Um, we were growing 50% a year and losing 50% in revenue, basically. I know the math doesn't come up because clients would just leave. I mean,
Sure.
and you weren't having client service and you were growing to grow. I was talking to my
Mm-hmm.
dad. My dad ran a major law firm for years,
Mm-hmm.
and he was actually at the table with clients giving marketing advice. No offense to lawyers, they're not marketing people. They think they
But they
know
think they are.
everything
They
about
think they are.
everything. They think they know everything about everything, by the way.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I said, well, why are you at the table giving marketing advice? I said, well, I volunteer to be at their staff meetings.
Mm,
If I'm there, they tend to give me assignments or I express an opinion. I don't bill for that, Ken. And I'm like, okay, well, maybe we should copy that. I didn't know any better. I didn't know billing. I didn't know all this stuff. But again, to push that through to where I said to somebody, go to the clients, go to their staff meeting,
mm-hmm.
volunteer to be there, but don't bill for it. You don't have to bill every hour.
Mm-hmm.
That's where the wake up for me occurred is, how to be that and be different is everything's not about a bill. We joke the first existence of the firm, and you came from agencies, you understand
Mm-hmm.
billing and you understand all the pressures that go there. I told clients we weren't going to bill by the hour. We have a scope, we'll be fair, we've always been fair.
Mm-hmm.
And we started with good clients that knew us, and that was fine. My team kept their hours on an Excel spreadsheet for 4 to 6 months because they thought a client was going to ask for it. Not one client has ever asked me, what did somebody do this week? Why, how long did something take? And again, now people concentrating on work.
Mm-hmm.
I can be an entrepreneur and do that. I can do things differently. Bill by the hour. Only time we did, got in a pissing match with a client because they wanted to understand why the crisis took so long. I don't have those problems, Bill.
Yeah. Will you, I think you might have just answered it there at the end. Will you reject a client if that's what they want? If they want bill by the hour, a new client coming on board and they said, this is the way we do it. Will you kick them out?
The
Kick
answer
them
is
out.
yes.
Yeah.
We had a client that we offered a six-figure discount not to bill by the hour, and they said no because of procurement and all the things you deal with there. And we
Mm-hmm.
did it, and it didn't work for anybody because you get back to where you're ultimately. But no, we will tell clients we won't.
Yeah.
Crisis is different, but in general, no, we
Yeah.
won't. But Bill, I think it's also in how to think differently. And again, what I learned from my father, and again, I learned from an attorney how to market, was in our business, you only get fired for three reasons. Client runs out of money. You can't control
Mm-hmm.
that. Bad client service and bad results. It's the only reason you get fired in this business. Think about it. Bad client service and bad results. You
Mm-hmm.
can control two of the three. They run out of money or we get economic uncertainty and they get budget. You can't control that. Or a client, I added a fourth. You get a new client, they want to bring in their new people.
Yeah.
You can't
Change.
control,
I would put change
yeah,
on that list.
yeah, you can't control two of the four.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
You
great.
can't. but you
No,
can
not at all, because you
control
can't
the
control
other.
those two middle two. I've got them listed here. That's great. I want to go back to the LDWW way. Is
Okay.
that is that a document? Is that
Yes.
how's that manifesto live? And I know you dislike it, but how did it get there? How did you birth that baby?
Bill, you know me well enough, and I think most entrepreneurs hate to memorialize things.
Yeah.
Um, but again, the firm was started on a simple notion of we don't work with bad people and we don't take
Mm-hmm.
bad clients. It means Leo DeRocher was wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But if you take that aspect and you start with this crystal of you want to be around really good people and you want to have really good people as clients, that's
Mm-hmm.
fine. That's up here. That's, and look, we fired clients for being bad people,
Mm-hmm.
but that's not what you're talking about. When you're talking about the way of how we approach client service, how we collaborate, how we work together, all of those are different. And all of those that are at a standard where I had standards for years that have been built on that. It's in writing. Everybody, everybody knows it. It doesn't mean that collaboration with 8 people or 60 people or 500 people is easy.
Mm-hmm.
Collaboration is the hardest thing we do in our business.
All right.
You think it's the easiest, but you might have a client relationship or you got so to take away all turf and get people to focus on it's about the client. We all say that, but do we truly care about those things
Mm-hmm.
is in writing. And we actually have, which we have a client, we have a client service level agreement
Mm-hmm.
that details some of those things that you get booted for
Sure.
on time, typos, all of those things we put in writing. Bill, when we
Is
were
that
at
like a
Big A,
guarantee? Is that almost like a
yeah,
guarantee?
I look, one of the sections is we strive for 95% on time, for instance. On
Mm-hmm.
time means 5 p.m. It doesn't mean end of the day does not mean midnight. Not clients are
Mm-hmm.
not working at midnight, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
It's 5 p.m. It's their day, not yours. But to put that in writing, Bill, when we were at big places, do you think a lawyer would have ever let us put that
No,
in
God no.
writing?
God no. Too much risk. Too much risk. So this
Exactly.
the way and is that the name of it? Is that the LDWW way? Is that the accurate way to characterize it?
Basically,
That's a if I understand it correctly, if I were a new employee and you handed me that document, what would be your level of confidence after reading that I get it without talking to
zero.
somebody else? Okay.
Zero.
Okay.
Well, let me say why zero. I think if you've been other places, and we have to really work at this, and it gets to the notion of we're not around at the table anymore, and we some of us haven't worked together.
Mm-hmm.
You read it, and you're coming from other places. It's kind of like Oz. It's idyllic. You think this
Mm-hmm.
is great. I don't have to worry about timesheets. I don't have to worry about that. I don't have to worry about that. And it gets into practice, and you realize what it means is you spend your time actually working and thinking about the client. You don't
Mm-hmm.
worry about admin. You don't people don't know what to do with that. You if you're in charge of the client or you're in a client relationship, putting things in writing within hours, no. So I don't think people get it, or I think they maybe understand it, but to see it in practice through good and bad, that the client relationship and truly what that relationship means. It's not contractual. In fact, we had a CFO at a client yesterday who in front of his team said, these are true partners. They want to be held
Mm-hmm.
accountable. Now, a CFO,
Love that.
Bill, I, CFOs in procurement are the bane of our general existence in the agency world. Not
Yeah.
this one, because he said, here are guys who want to be judged. Okay. By the way, it's on sales. If our ideas don't lead to sales, they're not worth anything.
Right. For
Okay.
the client side.
For
For
the
their
client side.
to improve their business. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So back on process. So as a new employee, I can read it, I can understand it, but that'll get me only so far. I need to experience it with the team. How do you use that process tool in the way to find and identify talent? How do you use it as a filtering membrane to identify you're going to fit here versus you're not going to fit here? And so how does recruitment and the way link together?
Bill, it's harder than I think. And because I think it's one of those you have to, you give up certain aspects. In our early years, I could sit and tell people if they really got it. As we've grown to let those senior leaders understand that you've got to be hiring people that can do this and really understand it is really important. And so my conversations with them have been, if you're ultimately responsible for the work and your people, and my oldest business partner, we had this conversation years ago, and she finally got it when I said, you know what? Replacing people makes your job two times, three times harder because you have to do it until you get somebody. And
Hmm.
so to find people that work, to mentor them, to understand, and to really embrace, I'm a huge believer in that people work for who they like, for
Hmm.
mentoring, for responsibility, things that aren't necessarily money.
Absolutely.
Money might be fifth or sixth. Don't we all want to make a good living, but the
Hmm.
other things matter. So those things on top of, do you understand this philosophy? If you hire people that don't, you're not going to be able to live up to your potential, number one. But number two, you are going to be working harder and your team harder. It's why retention is very important, but it's also, if somebody's not working, to make the hard decision to replace somebody,
Hmm.
not for economic reasons, which we've never had to do, thank God.
Right.
But if somebody doesn't really work, what are we going to do to help them find what they want to do? And it might not be here. That's
Yeah.
that's also something we believe in very much.
Do you will you talk to every new anybody you guys are interviewing? Will you talk to them before they get hired as president?
No, and it's actually very strategic, Bill. Now, if somebody's senior, I'd probably do it.
Right.
But the reason is I want people to understand that I'm not the one who has their comp, mentors them. I'm not saying I don't. But typically, if somebody interviews with me or gets an offer from me, to me, they're two things. Offers don't come from me, they come from who they're going to work with.
Hmm.
And I will talk to somebody if they have questions or if they want to know about the firm. But I want the relationship to start with those senior people they're going to work with before they even get here. And then look, I'll embrace everybody, and some people avoid me like the plague, and some people we get along for all different kinds of reasons.
Was there a head count number where that changed? Where you stopped talking? Like, is that around a dozen, north of a dozen, north of 20, north? Is there a number where you stopped talking to everybody before you got hired?
Yes, I think it was when we got to the point, not necessarily a number, but when we were more than just a PR firm, when we
Mm-hmm.
added digital and social, when we added media buying, when we added really great creative skills,
Mm-hmm.
when we became fully integrated and had more than just the original partners. That's
Right.
got to be part of your responsibility, is to hire people who are going to work here and make us grow and make our work good.
Yeah. You mentioned that client service. We're in the client service business. We've got someone that we both used to work for that said we're in the wisdom business. Fundamentally, we're in the business of wisdom, and we're kind of measured by our good ideas. And you had mentioned that before. Do you think that client service and wisdom are on the same plane? Or is wisdom a higher level of accountability, and that's really how you want to be measured versus just simply serving the client? Do you see a distinction between wisdom, and do you even embrace that we're in the wisdom business?
Yes and no. Um,
Yeah,
I yes, at some level you're in the wisdom business because clients call and they want an answer.
right. What do you think?
Um, I think we have to remember we're in the move our clients product business, but I think the distinction that I ultimately have come to, which is somewhat different than others, is we're in the business of really whatever our clients are is client service. I didn't, again, I'll use prepaid legal services. We talked about it. I'm in that business, whether I want to think I am or not, because I'm
Mm,
responsible for the client. And that's the business we're in. We're in the business of selling products, no matter what it is, even if it's corporate reputation. That is about protecting somebody's reputation to sell something.
hmm.
That's the business we're in. We're in the business of whatever our client's business is. And that's harder than being in the wisdom business or the PR business or any business we want to be in, Bill. It's just a different mindset. And it's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't think everybody looks at client service and the agency marketing business as that. And again, it's just we can do what we want.
Yeah. Because you've got scale. So back to your team. So one of the things that I had a client share with me that they subscribed to, two different clients, and I'll give you two different scenarios and I'm curious your reaction. One is they said, I'm a submarine captain, and that is how I think about my employees, is that they're all on the submarine and I'm underwater doing our work and we're serving our clients and whatnot. If someone doesn't work, I can't just leave them on the shore or jettison them out the torpedo tube. I got to figure out how to make that work. Got another client that said, we need to keep moving fast. And if we make a mistake on hiring somebody, we just need to admit it, man up, and move on because it's just that they're weighing us down. So you've got this submarine model where the team on the boat can't get off. And then another is, hire slowly, fire quickly. Reflect on that and tell me your sort of thoughts on that from a team standpoint.
I think everybody likes to say hire quick, whatever, hire whatever,
Hire
fire
slowly,
whatever,
fire quickly. Yeah.
hire slowly, fire quickly. I try to get people, and I think the philosophy of going back to why'd you hire them in the first place? So, in other words, again, like relationships,
Mm-hmm.
we need to give people three opportunities. Okay. We need to put them in a position to fail or succeed at least three times. Okay.
Okay.
Because if not, we're creating work for ourselves. Granted, there are times where they're not, but, and it's where sports and my passion for sports has been in. So whether it's a submarine captain or a coach, it's all the things you talked about. It's my job to put people in the right place. It's my job to encourage people. It's my job to get on people when we're not doing what we're supposed to. It's my job to figure out ultimately, no matter what I said about partners and other people being in charge, it's my job to make sure people are doing their best
Mm-hmm.
to move us forward. Again, we sell people.
Yeah.
That's We're only as good as our brains. We're only as good as the work product we put out. So I believe my job is ultimately, and I'm good at some and I'm not at the other, to realize what it takes to push at least 15 senior people to success and identify those young people that the next generation after the next generation could run this place and spend time with them so that they never leave, or if they do, they throw up before they come talk to me. I mean, whatever that is, that's my job. That's my job. It's internally making sure people have what they need to succeed, understand what they're trying to do. And everybody's different. You can't write down, here's what this does. Everybody's different. And
Right.
it's to make sure all the clients know. And it's to make sure all the clients, we have expectations with the clients, and we have goals, and we report against them. And it's all of those things. I'm a coach.
Yeah.
That's it to me.
That's great. In that metaphor of sports, sometimes somebody doesn't work out. You got to bench them. That's one thing, or you got to trade them. That's another thing. And then in the age of the portal, you got to encourage them to go to the portal. And so, how we talk a lot about firing, and firing is
Yeah.
hard for some people. And talk about letting people go. And yes, you're a coach, and you probably sound like you subscribe more to the submarine metaphor than Fisher
I
Cup
do.
ate really fast. But sometimes you need to do benching or exit or a force exit. To talk a little bit about that and your thinking and evolution and how other owners can learn from the way you think about letting people go.
Nobody likes to do it. We all know that. I talked to a
Mm-hmm.
friend the other day. I'd let five people go the first time in his business, and
Mm-hmm.
he was more miserable than anybody else. First off, we don't like to do it. Nobody likes to do it. I learned a lesson very early on when my second day of running that agency I talked about, where I learned
Mm-hmm.
from my dad, I'd let half the staff go because that was the first job they gave me.
Just
Again,
to
big
right
holding
size it. Yep.
company. I have to right size it. Literally let 25, 30 people go, Bill.
Mm,
I was walking the halls and people didn't want to see me coming. It was a horrible experience, but I had to let go some friends, like people I had brought over, friends.
sure.
And I handled it with empathy and I was honest. In fact, to the point to where some became clients when they left. And so I think it's holding ourselves to the standard of if I see somebody down the road, and let's
Hmm.
say they, again, nobody likes to be let go. So let's say after that shock and after you've been let go, will they talk to me? But will I see them in a restaurant and they talk to me and not be awkward?
That's in your mind when you're going through the process.
Yes,
That end state.
absolutely.
Nice.
Absolutely. Now look, there's some people you could be empathetic straight to the point, whatever, and you're never going to win. But I've had people who's like husbands, in this case for a wife, called me and said, I want to thank you because my wife hated her job. And she was long term, tenured, wonderful human being.
Did you
But he
know that?
called,
Did you know she
no,
hated it? Oh, didn't
no.
know it. Yeah.
She had just grown to the point to working at a big firm and all the changes a holding company put in
Sure.
weren't for her. And her husband thanked me. And she went to work for her husband in the mortgage business and kicked ass
Mm.
and loved every bit of it because she was dealing with people.
Hmm.
So no, I don't. And the other thing we've been trying to do, and again, you can do it when you're on your own. There have been several people I've said, look, I know that you're not happy. You're not achieving what your ultimate success is. So why don't I compensate you for several months? You can say you're working because it's always better to find a job when you
Sure.
have one and go do it. Go find something. Let me help you. Go find something. Spend all your time trying to go figure out what it is you want. We don't have to do that.
What's your instinct on specificity? Is that 60 days, 90 days? Do you have a compass on that on the
Bill,
actual number?
for some, I've actually gone 6 months.
Wow. Okay.
Well, because I don't know. And again, there's some that don't work, and you just say, here it is, and
We
go.
got to
And
move on.
it's a bad relationship. But if somebody's really tried and you can do it financially,
Yeah.
what what's 3, 4, 5, 6 months in the scheme of things?
Cheaper
It's
that way.
not. It's not. And again, if your filter is, will you talk to me at a restaurant or a bar?
Yeah.
Or if you go someplace, will you call if you need help? What
Yeah.
somebody can go be a client. I've had people go to the corporate side and they call, and it's people that, but they know what I stand for.
Sure.
They know what our standards are, and they know if they're in a jam, they call.
Hmm.
That's my filter.
That's
I,
great.
I I don't know that I can always do that, but that's my filter.
I love that. It's a great starting place to do that with grace and care on that in that way. Similarly, you've had, if I'm correct, at LDWW, you've had employees leave to go work for clients. They've
In fact, a very good friend. Yes.
just double checking,
Yeah, double checking. She's
and
a client and a friend.
so obviously you embrace that. That's a good thing. But talk a little bit about that topic because I hear generally people think it's a good idea, but I also hear a little bit of mixed message that well they're really awesome and I can't afford to let them go, but my client really wants them. So tell me about your thinking around clients, basically poaching is one way to think about it, or clients appreciating the value of your team. So talk a little bit about that.
I think some people would look at it as if I lose somebody, they're going to keep us. And I don't think that's the right way to look. Because somebody asked me about that case and said,
Ah,
well, you
interesting.
knew she would keep you. I said, no, I didn't, because I don't know what the bosses felt about it. But if you really get back to, are you a mentor? Do you know what's going on? Do you understand people? This particular person, when she finally talked to me about it, the lifelong dream was to have that type of position
Mm-hmm.
at a Fortune 500 company. Now, why would I not say, we've worked together 20, go do it,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of the outcome to the firm? And so I think it's always good, especially if that's what somebody wants to do. But that's why handling it right, not making it a client issue, making sure the client knows this is something that you embrace. But if somebody wants to be on the corporate side and wants to do something different, by all means, you're not going to be 100% effective here then. If there's something you definitely, it's no different if I was in another career, which I had been, and I don't want to do it, and I don't like what I'm doing, find what you want to do. So to me, look, everybody is replaceable. I've learned that the hard way. Everybody is replaceable. And again, if somebody leaves to go do something else, I hope we work together.
Hmm.
I do. I really do. And I've enjoyed it. And I've actually enjoyed that person as a client. It's completely different than I thought it would be in a good way. And it's back to a respect level of you can do that, but I know that. So, Bill, I think it's like anything else. If you would have told me that you're going to be doing what you're doing,
Hmm.
okay, I might have said, what?
Yeah.
But I would have supported you because we had a good working relationship and we were
Hmm.
friends.
Right.
It's no different if somebody wants to
On your
leave.
team that wants to go do that. Yeah.
It's
Oh,
not
that's great.
personal.
It's very wise, and I get troubled by people that are it's basically a scarcity mindset versus an abundance mindset. The scarcity folks are like, oh, no, I can't let Jack or Jill leave because whatever, as opposed to no, I'm going to spread abundance in the world. I love that. So let's talk about you. I've got a couple things on my mind. Do you think about the R word? And either could be retirement or refinement. And I think it's more about refining yourself in the next phase of
It's
your life. So
refinement.
it's refinement. Should you think about that for yourself and do it with intention with your team?
My good friend Bill Coletti, in a conversation with me, made me think about that. And so, if I take that on top of a health scare I had,
Mm-hmm.
do I think about it? Yes. But what it did was it made my filter more clear. In other words,
Mm.
as long as I am enjoying the work,
Mm-hmm.
the challenge, the industry, then I don't want to have that discussion with myself.
Mm-hmm.
On top of, I have to grow the firm so that there are opportunities for all these people who've been here that I want them to continue to have opportunities for. So
Mm-hmm.
if we're ever not, the second one's more important to me. If we're ever not in a position to where people can advance and do the things they want to do in their careers at LDWW, then I haven't done enough. That's my filter. If I, and then if I ever do want to refine, then nobody will miss a beat. So do I think about it? Yes, but I think about it in a look. If I have to get up at 3:30, which is not abnormal, and it's work before I work out, do I resent it? If the answer is no, then I'm doing something I want to do, and that's my filter. And I hope to refine it in 3, 4 years to the standpoint of those that are the next generation, go to the process we talked about, are running the firm in the same way. And if it's one of our clients and they say, I haven't missed you at all.
Yeah.
That's what I
Gotcha.
want.
Yeah,
That's
that's
what
a
I
win.
want.
That's a win. I don't want to go too deep into succession planning, but is
You
that
can.
known? Does your team know what that might look like? That like who gets what role at that level
No,
of clarity today? Okay.
no.
That's what'll happen in the next 3 or 4 years kind of thing.
Yeah, but I
Okay.
mean, have I put certain people in a place of responsibility or have I, and look, I've changed my management committee structure several times
Mm-hmm.
just because trying to get people to work together and take the next level and do that. Um, I would love to um, be in a position to be like Stan Richards, where he kept it in a drawer. But this isn't the Richards group.
Mm-hmm.
It will be very obvious to every client. And again, let's say I keep some ownership. It's going to be obvious and everybody internally. It's no different than a promotion. When you promote somebody and people go, well, it's about time.
That made sense.
That's when to me it works, Bill.
Yeah. What have you, as you think about that for yourself, what have you learned from your dad? What have you learned from his journey?
Bill, that's yeah, that's a lot. And it's on several different levels. I've been very lucky. My dad's only 20 years older than I am.
Mm-hmm.
So my dad, by the way, they were married. They eloped. So anybody who can do math, they would put that together. Um, no, but again, he built a law firm
Mm-hmm.
to one of the nation's largest. He
Mm-hmm.
did it on client service. He
Mm-hmm.
gave up things. I mean, I remember sitting down when I was 10 in the Carter years, hearing about recession and having to sell the car to keep the firm going and having to do this. It's no different than me during COVID saying, I'm not taking a paycheck. And so I learned how he grew a service firm. Law firms are service firms.
Sure.
But I also learned later in life from him about doing what you enjoy. When it was time that he wasn't enjoying law because it was changing, but he enjoyed public policy. He put his heart and soul into public policy, still does it. My
Hmm.
sisters said, Dad, you need to retire. I said, to do what? He doesn't play golf, he reads, and he likes public policy. Retirement for him, again, if you enjoy it, are you still doing it? So I enjoyed do what you want to do, enjoy what you do. He would say the same thing I did. He never gave himself credit for being there or a phone call away back in the day
Hmm.
as we were growing up. And so I learned a lot from him. And I learned a lot for how to balance life and clients. But if I had an example of anything, it'd be that he is doing even today, refined, what he wants to do.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great. We've seen, back to the sports metaphors, we've seen the talented athlete that stayed a couple seasons too long because of physical decline. They physically declined. As you observe the marketplace and observe leaders of a certain age, is cognitive decline a concern and relevant? And should owners be thinking about that and set up systems? Because I don't know if we can see it in ourselves, much like Michael Jordan might not have seen it in his physical performance. How do you think about that? How do you think about cognitive decline and what we do and the future of our firms?
Well, I would hope that those that I've worked with, or my wife or my sons, I have a son that's a client, so let's put him in that same vein. If they didn't say, hey, there's some thing, we need to have this discussion, then I've done a lot of things wrong over the last years.
Nice.
So that's one. But not just cognitive decline. If we're not keeping up with what's going on in the world and where our industry is really going, and if we're not up with trends, if we're not up with tools, if we're not up, that's to me the first thing before you get to cognitive decline. If I'm sitting there still, I'm not talking about press release in
Right.
today's market.
Yeah. And that AI is a
Again,
fad. AI
yeah,
is just a fad. That's
yeah.
not real.
And again, use AI, Bill. AI is going to change who we hire.
Yep.
It's not necessarily going to change the way we do business like some think.
Mm-mm.
I'd still have to hire somebody who talks the right thing to produce an ad if you did it in AI. I mean, AI's, again, don't like technology. I wish social media would go away. I wish all of those things so that we would talk. But, I think that's the biggest risk for us as entrepreneurs is we hang on too long without understanding where our certain firm or business is.
Yeah. It's hard. I'm talking to a couple of guys that are struggling with that, but men and women that are struggling with that. Struggle, mental health. I know it's something that you're passionate about, or you've had some campaigns about it, and the importance of being honest and open and speaking truth into mental health. Talk a little bit about that, and how does that both the work and the project that I'm referencing, but also kind of how it impacts you as a leader.
Bill, that that's actually such a multifaceted question that you never probably thought of when you asked that of me. One, we were ahead of our time in that, and it was kind of one of the first mental health campaigns that went out and talked about you need to talk, you need to get help if you need it, you need to be open. But I learned things, and my father was the client. He was with the Meadows Mental Health Policy Institute, and they
Mm-hmm.
they did this campaign. And but to learn that back in the day, my dad, my grandmother was bipolar. She was schizophrenic. To have to take her for electric shock therapy
Mm.
when you're a young teenager, to convince her to go, and the toll it had on a family, and how people helped him do that, and how it helped her,
Mm-hmm.
and to deal with that, or his own mental health issues, whether it was stress, again, all of those are mind drinking, whatever that was, to learn about individuals and to have people be open and raw That was the most rewarding thing to me about that campaign.
Mm-hmm.
But the long-term impact of it was, while it was a consumer campaign, to be part of what they built that has helped this state, and this state has a lot of flaws. Okay, it's
Mm-hmm.
not a political statement,
Mm-mm.
but
It's a
it is
reality.
what it is. But that the state is committed now over several billion dollars to mental health initiatives for citizens of the state of Texas. Billions, not millions, billions is rewarding. So again, you talk about results. The results didn't intend for this consumer campaign to wind up being billions of dollars of funding, but it was. And the campaign itself, there have been two campaigns in my career that, if I had done nothing else, I hope people would remember. One was the
Mm-hmm.
OK to Say campaign, and was a great effort that got people to talk and get help. And it's still going on in some form or fashion, whether they use OK to Say or not. People talk
Mm-hmm.
about mental health issues, and mental health is hugely important. And our generation wasn't, Bill, and it is
Mm-hmm.
now.
Yep.
And the other one was sexual assault. Um, our good friend Chris Lippincott had hired us
Mm-hmm.
years ago, and we had a campaign that was Speak Up, Speak Out, that was told by everybody in that realm that people do not want to talk about assault. And I said, look, let's try it. My gut is, because they didn't want to pay for research, that if I put out a call to have people talk about sexual assault, that they will be on camera and they will
Mm-hmm.
want to talk about, because people want help. People want
Absolutely.
to help others. Line out the door to talk about sexual assault. And it was young ladies, old, older men. I mean, and the fact that it became national from the standpoint of speak up, speak out if this has happened to you,
Mm-hmm.
those are two things that are hugely important to society that I, with a lot of creative people, have been able to work on. Again, people who say it's just about selling. Yeah, we sell things. We also help people. And
Changing.
and those two change lives. And
Yeah.
I feel really good about those, even though you and me both don't give ourselves enough credit in life. I would say working on those two might be, when it finally comes time to go, that that's what he did.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I so embrace that. And we get focused on bottom lines, we get focused on results, but changing things that people don't want to talk about, which is why I'm okay, talking about cognitive decline. I'm okay talking about
Yeah.
what this next phase of your life is, the implications of the relationship with partners and things like that. So those are all really good things. I
But
want to
Bill,
wrap up.
before
Go ahead.
before you
No,
wrap
go
up,
ahead.
there's also something really important as leaders for both those examples. Sometimes we have to stick with our gut. We
Mm.
have to use our what we've learned, our experience, to
Mm-hmm.
say, I believe that this risk is worth it.
Hmm.
Talking about sexual assault and talking about mental health were not something in those realms that professionals thought would help and work. But to be able to say, look, you hired us for a reason. Try it, see what success is. It You didn't have research to back it. You didn't have all these, we all talk, oh, I need to have this, and I need to be buttoned up. Look, sometimes people want us to have an opinion and use our brain. And both
Mm-hmm.
those work. I failed more times than those two, but I'll always remember those two. So
Yeah,
wrap
that's
up how you
amazing.
want, Bill.
I love that. I mean, I think the boldness as a leader to do that, trust your gut, but the boldness to take on sort of those public awareness issue campaigns. I love that. That's fabulous stuff. So I want to ask you a handful of just really short things, and the context is fear or fascination. All right, so fear or fascination, and I'll sort of rattle off a couple of different topics, and you can expand on it, or you can just stop with fear or fascination, whichever
What you're
serves.
saying is give short answers, Ken. Okay, go ahead. I got
If you
it, Bill.
can, but I think your wisdom's valuable, so I'll give you some grace. AI, how do you look at AI, with fear or with fascination?
Extreme fascination.
Yeah.
Again, A lot of legal issues with it, a lot of understanding to do it. But the fascination, technology has always changed this world. How far will it go? Yes, I have fear, but it's way down the list. The
Yeah.
fascination with AI and real technology, Bill, I think is just incredible.
That's awesome. That's awesome. The economy in 2025, kind of fear or
Ultimate
fascination?
fear.
Interesting. Tell me more.
Um, again, not a political statement, but on a global basis, where we're going has put fear into global companies. Doesn't impact our business. All of ours are U.S., but they have operations.
Sure.
They do work globally,
Mm-hmm.
and I think to realize that the last 30 years, especially of our lives, this truly is a global economy, a global world. No matter what we ultimately think as a country or not, we're all
Mm-hmm.
intertwined.
Mm-hmm.
That's why there's fear, because the uncertainty leads to fear. And that's what we're seeing. That's why I, I've thought it for the last several years because everybody's talked about it, but it never happened. I think this is one of those cycles that fear is going to overwhelm people. And to be prepared for that is something I in fact just finished talking to my team about.
To the and what's the message you want to leave your team? That buckle up because we may have cutbacks, changes, gosh forbid, layoffs. What's your intent of that level of opining around the crystal ball?
Never in my career has that type of economic uncertainty not led to opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And so the opportunity is going to be if somebody wants to make a change, it could be an opportunity to do things differently here if it's dramatic. But there's always opportunity. There was opportunity in 11 with the financial crisis
Mm-hmm.
because you and I happen to live in a state where there was real no uneconomic certainty because of the oil business.
Right.
And to take advantage of clients here that were doing it grew. I've never
Mm-hmm.
been through a period of economic uncertainty where I was working didn't grow. Now, might not be growth that we ultimately want, but again, I talk about opportunities and growing the firm. So is it an opportunity? Is it a challenge? I don't know, but to be honest and have people think about, we need to make sure we're flawless
Mm-hmm.
was my other message.
Hiring of family, either your own experience or just what you've observed, fear or fascination in hiring family members into our businesses?
Fear. Um, and this is not a short answer. I worked for my dad's law firm in seventh grade, and afterwards they passed a nepotism bill. So
Mm-hmm.
obviously I was not a good runner in seventh grade. Um, the reason it's fear, and my youngest son is our office manager, does a tremendous job. My oldest son is a client, and but there's always, unless you're really good at the relationship being separate,
Mm-hmm.
then it's tremendous fear. And I never hired until I was here, and or never wanted a family member, even my dad as a client necessarily, until I was ready for it. You have to be able to separate. If I have a work issue or a client issue with one of my sons, if we can't enjoy Christmas dinner together, then it's a problem. Now we can separate those things, but it's real fear. It,
Mm-hmm.
it is real fear, Bill, because the relationships and the family are more important to me. That's why it's fear.
Yeah, no, I get it. I get it. Um, Difficult one to put into fear and fascination, but so I'll try to frame it appropriately. The future of DEI in corporate context, and then the ability for agencies to respond and serve. The future of DEI.
Fear because it's being squashed. I think
Mm-hmm.
we've lost the history. Look, I, DEI served a really good purpose. It gave people opportunity. It fixed problems that existed. Okay, it did. And I'm in a state where you can't talk about DEI. And so my fear is, look, we can't talk about it to certain clients. Look, we're at a stage in the world where you can't have a conversation about things. That's the real fear. It's not just DEI. I can't have a conversation with a client like I used to about politics. Bill,
Without tons of caveats before you get there.
but I don't even want a caveat anymore.
Yeah.
And because you don't, because we've gotten to that point.
Okay.
That's my fear is
Yeah.
and it's not social media, it's cable TV, it's everybody thinking everything. That's a fear, and that's what technology has done, and I hope we rein it in. But I have huge fear we're losing out when we don't talk about DEI or
Mm-hmm.
at least embrace. And again, here, I tell my people, we don't have to talk about DEI, we live it. If we're not diverse in our hiring, in our people, in our thoughts, then we're not in the client business. We're
Mm-hmm.
not, because they
Mm-hmm.
are. They have different audiences.
Yeah. Good stuff. Last one. I talk about in the context of climbing your first mountain. Was this your career and your entrepreneurism and building LDW? And that will be a lasting legacy. As you think about climbing your second mountain, whatever that may be, do you have fear or fascination as you think about climbing your second mountain?
Fear. I mean, look, and Bill, you did it better than others, even though you're
Mm-hmm.
selling your boat. I hope you've sold it.
I have not. Got a
Um,
Russian guy coming down next week, so I'm
okay,
excited
well,
about
let me
that.
tell you, if I sailed, I would have bought it. You took your fear and did something about it. My fear is not knowing what to do every day, like every
Mm,
entrepreneur. I love going to
mm-hmm,
work. And it's not that I don't want to spend more time with my family. It's not that I want my boys to have more grandkids. I only have one. She's only 10 months old. I need more. It's not that
mm-hmm,
I don't want to travel. It's not that I want to do all of those things. But my fear is the sense of worth I get
mm-hmm,
from going to work every day, not an ego thing. I'm very proud of what we've done. Um,
mm-hmm.
and I'm going to be really proud when I step away. But that's the fear I think we all feel is, will I have the same self-worth the day I stop doing what I'm doing?
Yeah, that's great. I appreciate that. So, Ken, I so appreciate our friendship. I so appreciate your wisdom and your perspective. You've built, speaking of self worth, you have built a great firm that has given many people careers that they might not have had otherwise with a culture that's actually really smart and sound and healthy. And so please take great comfort in that you've built that, and you should be very, very proud of that. I know hopefully some of your team members are going to listen to this and will reflect that pride. So thank you for taking your time, and it's a great conversation.
Well, Bill, thanks for the conversation, but no joke. And you know this. And
Mm-hmm.
I rescheduled many times. So that's my flaw. But it's mutual. And again, that's what's so good about the industry we're in. Our
Mm-hmm.
paths have crossed
Mm-hmm.
and they've remained crossed
Mm-hmm.
because of commonality of thinking and not thinking the same way,
Mm-hmm.
but just having open dialogue and talking and being friends as well as colleagues. That's the other thing about this business that's so good is your journey
Yeah.
is not one I could ever do,
Mm-hmm.
but you're damn well doing it and having fun doing it. And I applaud you, my friend.
I appreciate that. Having a blast. Awesome. That's fabulous. Well, I hope you got an opportunity to learn more and know more about my friend Ken Luce as president of LD. I think as we look on our journeys, as we look at people that we can learn from, I think Ken shares a lot of really interesting perspective. I think that notion of that, hates process and it feels somewhat stifling to actually having a way and a process that sets the stage from a firm that was at 8 people and award winning to now 60 people and also award winning. And so having process, having systems are really important. Thinking about the way we hire people and as our ego gets wrapped up into hiring people, some real valuable insights and perspectives from that. So glad you were here. Please send us more ideas of interviews of agency owners that we should be talking to. I'd love to have those conversations and wish you all the best. And thanks for listening in to the Heart and Science of Creative Leadership. Thanks so much.